we are going to start soon. I would like to I would like to repeat the instructions. Please kindly follow those instructions. Keep your mic on mute and do not share anything over screen. So we are looking forward for your cooperation to make the event success. So kindly do not open your mic. Just kindly keep it on your mute and do not share anything over screen. So we will looking forward for your cooperation and we will be going to start soon.
Ms. Kajol Maheshwari, please stop sharing the screen. I'll read the instructions again. Please, your kindly attention, please. You are requested to keep your microphone on mute. Switch off your videos during the session. Please do not share your screen at any point during the conference. Please leave questions, if any, in the chat. They shall be addressed at the end of the session. Kindly maintain the decorum throughout the conference. Your cooperation is solicited to conduct this conference in an organized manner. Start. Vishal, you can start with the session. I think sir has joined the conference. Vishal, can you hear me?
Yeah, Purnima, we are starting.
Now, please.
I welcome you on behalf of entire Bhagini family. I would request you all to kindly please keep your microphone on mute position so that you will be convenient to hear the speaker and us as well. Thank you for the cooperation in advance. So I welcome you all on the behalf of the entire Bhagini family again on the second day of our international virtual conference. I would like to tell you that about this conference again a bit. This conference income, which means Earth is a family, is our small initiative to bring different think tanks of various streams, including humanities, science, and commerce from all over the world on a single platform to discuss various aspects of pandemic over people and environment and their solution using science and technology. So today we are going to have two sessions. The first session will be on pandemic and technology, which will be chaired by Professor Deep Shashidharan. And the second will be on pandemic and physics, basically, which will be chaired by Dr. Pankaj. So let us begin the session with our traditional value, traditional Indian value. So I will request all of you to be in Namaskar position. So I would like to invite our final year student from BA program, Blossom, to recite Gayatri Mantra. Blossom, am I audible to you?
Yes, sir.
So, Blossom, over to you.
ॐ भूर्भुवस्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो न प्रचोदयात्.
Gayatri Mantra. The meaning of Gayatri Mantra. Om, the primeval sound. Bhur, the physical body. Bhuva, the life force. Swaha, the soul. Tat, that means God. Savitri, the sun. Varenya, adore. Bhargo, the divine light. Devasya, supreme Lord. Dhimahi, meditate. Dhiyo, the intellect. Yo, may this light, na, our, prachodaya, inspire. We meditate on that most adored Supreme Lord, the Creator, whose divine light illumines all lands, physical, mental, and spiritual. May this divine light illumine our intellect. The Gayatri is a universal prayer enshrined in the Vedas. It is addressed to eminent and transcendent divine, which has been given the name Savita, meaning that from which all this is born. The Gayatri may be considered as having three parts: adoration, meditation, prayer. First, the divine is praised, then it meditated upon it reverence, and finally an appeal is made to the divine to awaken and strengthen the intellect, the discriminating faculty of man. The Gayatri is considered as the essence of Vedas. Veda means knowledge, and this prayer fosters and sharpens the knowledge of leading faculty. Now, with these words, I welcome Dr. Charu Sharma, Principal Bhagini Nivedita, the true inspiration and strong pillar behind this conference. I would like to invite ma'am to open this session. Ma'am, you have to unmute yourself.
Thank you so much, Dr. Purnima, and thank you everyone for this beautiful morning here. Good morning, Suprabhat, and a very warm welcome to this webinar day 2. I give my best wishes to all the participants, and a big thank you for all the distinguished lineup of guests and speakers. who have joined us and who will be enlightening us today. And it has been a special morning also because we begin the day with the Gayatri Mantra. I wish if we could all have chanted it together to create a very good positive energy, all of us doing that. Perhaps that can be done some other time. So welcome everyone and good luck. So Dr. Purnima, you can take it forward, and my best wishes for the entire day today.
Thank you, ma'am, for the enlightened words. It is the supreme art of the teacher. It is the supreme art of the teacher to awaken joy in creative expression and knowledge. With this statement, I'll welcome Professor Vinod Kumar Jain. The name needs no introduction. Vice Chancellor, Tejpur University, ex-Vice Chancellor, Doon University. He has done his DPhil from Sussex University, Britain, UK. He has more than 100 research publications in reputed international and national journals, supervised number of PhD and MPhil students, and taught MSc and MPhil for about 27 years in Jawaharlal Nehru University. He took undergraduate laboratory training at Sussex University, reviewer in various reputed journals, including Physics of Fluids, member of several academic bodies like member of panel of experts of University Grant Commission UGC, Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, Union Public Service Commission, member of UGC team to MS University Baroda, Gujarat, member editorial board, Indian Aerosol Science and Technology Association, member Fog Steering Committee set up by National Physical Laboratory, member Academic Council, Terry University, advisory Scholar Academy, Washington University, St. Louis, USA. With these words, I just welcome Professor Vinod Kumar Jain. Sir, it's over to you now. Sir, can you hear me? So you have to unmute yourself. Your voice.
There might be some technical issue. Just
Now it's audible. Now you can start. Sir.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Purnima, for giving me this opportunity to be sharing my thought with you all. Professor Charu Sharma, Dr. Dhal, faculty members of the college, students, and dear participants. Friends, yesterday we celebrated World Environment Day, and that was in the backdrop of this COVID-19 pandemic. This COVID-19, as you all are aware, has come as a rude shock to all of us and has shaken up the entire global ecosystem. If I were to use the scientific jargon, this whole global ecosystem from its equilibrium position has sort of got disturbed to a non-equilibrium state. And this non-equilibrium state, we don't know how it's going to evolve eventually and what is going to be the new normal, as people say. We don't know. So we are grappling with, or going to grapple with, a very uncertain future. But certainly what this pandemic has taught us is that all of us, irrespective of where we live, which country we belong to, what is our religion or race or caste, we are all interconnected. It has also given us some important lessons. that the anthropogenic activity, how it is so intricately connected with all the natural components of environment. In the electronic media, we have seen some delightful visuals of the wildlife claiming its space. And why is it that all of us as human beings feel so good about it? Perhaps all of us, we are intrinsically wired to nature. And that is one reason why we feel so delighted when we see blue skies and the birds chirping away, the flock of birds again visiting the wetlands, and the herds of deer or other wildlife coming onto the roads and parks and whatever spaces are available. So it just goes on to show that somewhere we are deeply connected with nature. In fact, we are part of natural ecosystem. Coming to the theme of the World Environment Day. In fact, yesterday there were a lot of seminars throughout the world, including in our own country, and I'm sure some of you must have been discussing some of the important aspects of the biodiversity loss and what are the factors for the loss of the biodiversity, what are the challenges before us, particularly a country of the size of India. Everything is of, every problem is of king size. If you go by the Sustainable Development Goals, so the country does not fare very well on most of these the targets of the goals. In fact, there is this concern being expressed by a large section of the academic community and the large section of the scientific community and also the economists. And their assessment is that because of this loss of biodiversity coupled with the climate change, and now this COVID-19 is going to make things worse. And in fact, is going to undermine the progress towards 80% of the assessed targets of the Sustainable Development Goals. As you know, there are 17 Sustainable Development Goals. There are something like 44 or 45 targets. Out of those, it is believed that only 80% of them are likely to be achieved. And some of you must be very familiar with these targets, but I would just like to mention the ones which are important as far as the linkage with the biodiversity and climate change is concerned. These are poverty, hunger, health, water, cities, climate, oceans, and land. And therefore, the biodiversity is not simply an environmental issue, but also a developmental, economic, security, social, and moral issue as well. Now, in our country, if you look at the factors which are responsible for the loss of biodiversity, of course, there are human factors like changes in the land use and sea use. There is a direct exploitation of the living organisms. There are instances of invasive species affecting the biodiversity. But for some of us, it's the climate change and the pollution which is which is probably going to be the most dominant factor affecting the biodiversity and our natural ecosystems. And in our country, the government is seized of the problem, and in fact, Indian government, as you know, has 8 missions which are called climate action missions. And if you recall, the Indian government had also pledged in the Paris Agreement certain nationally determined contributions, intended nationally determined contributions, which are called INDCs. And as part of those INDCs, what Indian government is committed to do is to reduce its carbon intensity by 20 to 25% by the year 2020. And by year 2030, the carbon intensity is supposed to be reduced by 30 to 35%. That is the target of the Indian government. Now, as you know, carbon intensity is carbon emissions per unit GDP, and therefore the countries like India, or for that matter, China and other some emerging economies, why they came up with this concept of carbon intensity was because if you have to meet these targets of CO2 emission reduction, then either you reduce the CO2 emissions through use of renewable technology or making your systems and processes very energy efficient, or you increase your GDP, or you can do both. That would reduce your carbon intensity. So either you reduce your CO2 emissions, or you reduce or you increase your GDP. The recent announcement by the Prime Minister that we want to have a 5 trillion economy. Now that would go a long way in addressing the achievement of this target. But this 5 trillion economy cannot happen just like that. Of course, you will have to take recourse to some very innovative ways. The way your industries function, how they can use resources and energy, particularly in a very efficient manner. So we have to build our green infrastructure, and our practices in our industries have to be green. And then hopefully we will also have a chance to address this issue of inequality in our society. Maybe if you go for large scale introduction of renewable technologies and other types of technology, we could empower all sections of our countrymen. And therefore, there is a hope that if we use renewable technologies and energy efficient technologies, we could address this huge disparity in terms of income or gender or ethnicity which exists in our country. I would just take a few more minutes and perhaps share my thoughts as to what we can do as an individual. We, as you know, our carbon footprint, we can have a look at it. We can reflect on our carbon footprint on a regular basis and see whether we are actually reducing our carbon footprint, or are we consuming energy far in excess of what we actually need. So this is something which, as an individual, we can see that if we can change our lifestyles in a manner that we can reduce our dependence on energy as much as we can. And secondly, the consumption of resources. Consumption of resources also has to be optimized. If you use your resources optimally, then obviously you will be producing less waste, you will be degrading your air much less, you will be causing pollution much less, and therefore you will be contributing in a more positive way. So resource consumption has to be optimal. Energy consumption has to be optimal. Simple changes in your lifestyle can go a long way, along with these technological interventions, which the government can introduce, which the industry can internalize. But as an individual, we certainly can look at our resource and energy consumption. Just as a lesson which we have learned from this COVID-19 situation, and the fact that the quality of air has shown significant improvement, the quality of water has shown significant improvement, and there are some recent research papers which have suggested that the levels of oxides of nitrogen have come down, the levels of carbon monoxide have come down, the levels of SPM have come down, which means that this direct connect between the anthropogenic activity and the environment is so clear. And therefore, if we regulate our lives in a manner that the air quality of our locality or of our organization or of our city remains within the limit, the water quality remains within the limit, the energy consumption remains within the limit, we would be contributing in a very positive manner to the welfare of all of us. And finally, I would conclude by just citing the constitutional provision, which is 51A, which enjoins on all of us the responsibility to see to it that the environment is protected. Please allow me to quote this. It says, "It shall be the duty of every citizen of India to protect, improve natural environment, including forests, lakes, rivers, wildlife, and to have compassion for all living creatures." And this reminds me of this horrific incident which took place in Kerala, where an elephant lost its life in the most gruesome manner. And I think there is some need to do some introspection as to whether we are doing our duty, which has been thrust upon us through this constitutional provision, Article 51A(g). And I really don't understand why the legal system in such cases cannot take suo motu cognizance and register a case and dispense with the justice in the swiftest possible manner. One of the first condition of happiness, as people say, is that we have to recognize the link between us and the nature. And we should ensure that this link with the nature is not broken. That would bring us the joy, the happiness, the satisfaction in our lives. With this, I conclude and wish you all the very best with your conference. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your valuable time, sir, and for your motivating and enlightening words. We are in YouTube and Facebook as well, so there is a question from YouTube Live. How the increase in GDP will affect carbon emissions?
Hello?
Yes, so there is a question from YouTube Live. How increasing GDP will affect the carbon emission?
Sorry, say it again. Can I? Because I'm not able to hear properly.
Sir, am I audible to you?
Yeah, now, yeah, please.
Yes, the question is how increase in GDP will affect carbon emission. This is a question from YouTube Live.
Yeah. I'll explain that. You see, if your economy is going to be driven mainly by your renewable energy sources, by very energy efficient industry, then the carbon emissions on the one hand will be lower. But since your GDP would go up, and when you define carbon intensity, it is the carbon emissions divided by the GDP. I said the carbon emissions or CO2 emissions per unit GDP later is larger, intensity becomes less. What the Indian government has pledged at Paris, it is the reduction, it is a voluntary pledge. It is not legally binding. Okay, because all these such intended nationally determined contributions, whether it is of China or of India, this is purely voluntary. But Indian government has committed itself to reduce its carbon intensity by 30 to 35% by 2030, which is a huge reduction target. And this also shows the government's confidence in the industry, in the scientific community, and the entrepreneurs or the innovators in the country, that they could do this. I mean, they could increase the GDP, the economy would grow, but at the same time, it would be a clean growth. It will be a clean growth. I hope I have made the point clear. So either you reduce your CO2 emissions. In fact, the government's strategy is twofold. Go for renewable energy share, to go on increasing this renewable energy share. And as you know, some of you may know, that is 40% of the total energy mix is to be met by renewable energy by 2030. That is the target of the Indian government. Whereas by 2022, it is only 175 gigawatt. The government intends to double it up to 350 gigawatt by 2030.
Thank you so much, sir. I would like to take opportunity to thank you on the behalf of entire Bhagini family to give us time, your precious time. And thank you so much, sir. Your talk was very enlightening and very motivating for us. It was very informative. So, thank you so much. Purnima? So now let us move to our next session. So our session is on pandemic in technology. So the chair, I would like to introduce our chair for the session, Mr. Pradeep Shashidharan. Mr. Pradeep Shashidharan has a rich experience of 14 years in the field of academics, marketing, strategy, sales, and consulting. He is the Chief Marketing Officer of Harvard Business School Online and has been instrumental in heading several projects in companies like Star India, Sony Pictures, Virgin Radio International, Red FM, ABP News, and others. He consulted with several companies in the domain of artificial intelligence and has been instrumental in leading several innovations for sectors like education, healthcare, retail, and media. He has a very vital role in the field of education. He is the chairperson of Mumbai University and has also taught in more than 50 plus universities in India and overseas, like Rotman School of Management. He has consulted 88,000 plus students in regard to their career prospects. He has been paper setter and examiner for several subjects in mass media and master in management with several universities. So without any further delay, I would like to invite you, Mr. Pradeep Shashidharan. Am I audible to you, sir?
Yeah, hi Vishal. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible, sir. Kindly please on your video is not visible. So.
Sure.
Yeah.
Can you see me? Is that am I audible and viewable right now?
Yeah, yes, sir. It's fine now, sir. So the session is over to you. Now I welcome you on behalf of our college family.
Okay, okay. Thank you, and I would thank Bhagini Nivedita College to actually organize such a seminar. It's wonderful to see such eminent speakers actually talking about pandemic technology, because such stalwarts are required to be to be aware. As in, we need to we need to aware ourselves on certain topics which is very much relevant right now. I would like to start the session. If I would say that as because the crisis is currently going on, I remember a quote what Mr. Jawaharlal Nehru, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru said, that crisis and deadlocks are something which has occurs, but there is some advantage to it. The advantage is that it makes us think. It makes us think, and this is what is required. Now you see, there's so many webinars happening. We never knew that education could be online and accessibility across platforms should be like this. Now this is something that our country is evolving towards it. So I think pandemic and technology is an important topic which we need to highlight and which we need to talk about actually. So, without much ado, I want to bring into highlight our speakers today. As in, frankly speaking, when I was going through the speakers list, I was like, I was very excited. I was enthralled. I was like, oh, I have to jot down actually, each and every credentials of the speakers who are actually there today. Our first speaker, as in, is Professor R.P. Tandon from Department of Physics and Astrophysics, University of Delhi. What I would like to say is, as in, if you see his credentials, is great. He has received his PhD in physics in 1977 from University of Delhi, India. He worked at NPL from 1977 to 1988, heading the electroceramic division for more than a decade, and he worked as research associate as at one of the best institutes, which is the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, which is also known as MIT USA, from 1980. He was appointed as scientific advisor to government of Haryana in India, and he joined the Department of Physics and Astrophysics of University of Delhi in 1998 as professor, and was heading that department for 3 years, from 2010 and 2013. He is also a visiting scientist to University of Leeds, University of Quebec, University of Toronto, Seoul Seoul National University, which is in South Korea. He has supervised about 25 doctoral degree. He has more than 190 research papers to his credit, and also a founder and board member of many scientific body basically. So without much ado, I think I would like to welcome Professor R.P. Tandon. Sir, it would be our pleasure to have you on board, and if you can given your thoughtful words over here and enlighten this session, please.
Pradeep, I just received a text from Dr. R.P. Tandon.
Okay.
Sir is in US currently, and due to lockdown, there are network issues there.
Okay.
So he has sent us a video recording of his talk, which will be uploading on YouTube. And I request participants after this session, they can go to our Facebook page and also to the YouTube live link, and you can check the video of sir, and you can post there your queries and questions there, and we will be mailing them to sir, and sir will be replying it. Thank you so much. So we can move forward with the session with the next speaker.
With the next speaker. Okay, we will do that. Okay. Okay, so also I would like to, I wanted to highlight on a few things that Professor V.K. Jain sir has actually spoke about. We being an individual, we need to be more responsive. Sir, I actually agree with the incident that had happened in Kerala. It is really gruesome, and I think government need to take action against it. We need to check on consumption of resources that need to be utilized. We need to have certain guidelines. I think it's been 75 days of quarantine, and you might have not realized that what are the changes that we might have done in our lifestyle. There has been many things that we would have changed. We cannot move out. We have to be stranded at our place. All of these things are important parameters, actually. So taking into consideration, and how you might have noticed one thing, that how technology is actually helping us also to connect amongst each other, as in because I consult on artificial intelligence and machine learning, I know how important it is in these days, that if we are not connected, it becomes difficult to actually work out things accordingly. Now, so let's talk about our next speaker. Our next speaker is Professor Terence Pereira. He's from Sheffield Hallam University in the UK. I would like to give a brief introduction about Professor Terence Pereira. He has done his bachelor's in mechanical engineering from University of Morathuwa, Sri Lanka. PhD in operations planning of flexible manufacturing systems from the University of Strathclyde, Glasgow, Scotland. He joined Sheffield Hallam University in 1987 as a professor for computer simulation. His research includes computer simulation and supply chain management. He has more than 20 international research publications in his credentials, and he has also supervised many postdoctorate fellows. So without much ado, I would request Professor Terence Pereira to enlighten this session.
Hello, good morning. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for the introduction. And thanks for Dr. Purnima and Dr. Vishal for inviting me. So I got a presentation I prepared. So let me get that one on the screen. Let's see. Right. Can you see this? Hello?
No, yes, sir. It's presenting right now.
Okay, right, good. Right. So, good morning, everybody. So, what I want to talk about is about how COVID-19. Oh, there's a bit of a noise. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
All right. Okay. Good. Okay. So, what I want to focus on is about the how the COVID-19 has affected the supply chain management side, and So, in the next 20-30 minutes, what I want to do is actually give a bit of introduction myself, and then introduce the concept of supply chain management. Some of you may be familiar, some of you may not be familiar. So I want to talk a little bit about what the supply chain management actually means. And then perhaps more importantly, to talk about the impact of COVID-19 on the supply chain operations. And then I want to move into talking about strategies and technologies that we use in the last few months to overcome some of the challenges faced by COVID-19 outbreak. And then a bit of introduction to the future direction. And I'm very happy to take a few questions. So thanks for the introduction again. And as you heard, that my main area is computer modeling and computer simulation. And I got quite a bit of experience in a variety of sectors, automotive, healthcare, manufacturing, supply chain, and so forth. And I was one of the founding architects of the MSc Logistic and Supply Chain Management course at the university, Sheffield Hallam University. Actually, it's very popular among students from India. For example, this year we have more than 50 students from India doing that course. And I got a lot of collaborative work going on with several institutions in India. For example, Carlinger Institute of Industrial Technology and MGR Research Institute and so forth. And I done quite a lot of work on the internationalization of higher education with various institutions around the world. And this is, thanks again for inviting me. And this is the second time I'm doing online conference in 3 weeks, organized by Institute in India. So let's move on. Now, supply chain management. I'm sure you all know what these pictures mean. I don't think I need to explain. And the question I would ask is, what is behind all of these things? And you might say they all come from India, but also behind them, there are supply chains. If you take any event, if you take any product, if you take any service, there's always a supply chain. Anything that you can imagine, if you think carefully in detail, you will see there's a supply chain behind that. Without supply chain, we cannot survive. It is so fundamental for our lives. So here's a good example, right? Because I'm going to talk about a little bit about pasta later on. So give you a bit of an idea about how the pasta arrive eventually at supermarket. So you can see the wheat is grown in Canada, right? They ship into Italy, yeah, and then obviously the pasta produced in there in their factories, and then there's a distribution network, right, and distribute around all the countries in the Europe, and they eventually come to various distribution centers in individual countries, and then obviously they arrive in supermarket, and people obviously buy pasta from supermarket or corner shops and so forth. Yeah, so very simple diagram. Now, what is really important here is these days, most supply chains are global supply chains. Yeah, maybe many years ago, they used to be pretty much sourced by local and national suppliers, but nowadays, vast majority of the supply chains are global supply chains. So that's quite an important point, right? Now, you may ask, what is the ultimate aim of a supply chain? So you can see on the left-hand side, we have a supply chain, and the other side, the more importantly, we have the consumers who demand certain type of products or services and so forth. And the main aim is actually to fulfill custom demand on time. Now, it is very simple to say this, but extremely challenging to actually achieve this target and how to fulfill custom demand on time. It is not an easy job to do. Okay, now in terms of the subject discipline, supply chain management, because my first degree was mechanical engineering, but I moved more into the operation management during my PhD studies. But about 15 years ago, I was reading a book about supply chain management. It was so interesting, so intriguing. I thought this is the subject area I should move into. And because it actually involves a lot of things, it's not just management, it involves information technology, it involves other kind of technologies such as automation, robotics, and so forth. So it's a very, very interesting kind of subject area. I'm sure some of you guys must be studying subject in relation to supply chain management, and it's a very vibrant, very interesting kind of subject area. So let's talk about impact of COVID-19, right? Now, disasters are not new. They happen all the time. Yes, so here's a few examples. There's one example from Chennai. When I had the Chennai floods, they had to stop all the production in factories. And there's in Beijing, there's the explosion at one of the largest the harbors. And probably most of you might know Fukushima nuclear incident, which basically stopped production of Toyota cars because one of the component supplier for the Toyota cars was in this area, and that production was affected for quite a period. So these things do happen, right? But this little thing, right, what we now call COVID-19, actually caused a lot more trouble than any other kind of disasters, right? We'll talk about, I'll show the difference in a moment. So let's look at what happened in here, right? Because when the UK government announced that there are going to be a lockdown, right? The first thing happened was there's a hell of a lot of panic buying, right? So people rush into supermarkets, right? They bought whatever they can buy, yeah, and in large quantities, right? So that's one of the things. So what happened was demand hike, right? Demand went up very, very quickly, yeah, and the supply chain actually could not meet the demand because it was not expected. Panic buying was not expected, but it happened unfortunately, right? And then what happened was European countries start closing their borders, so that it actually hit the transportation. So the transportation had to stop. And then obviously the lockdown in almost every country in Europe, and that obviously affected the production capacity of the individual factories. And on top of that, obviously because of the social distancing, what happened was the overall capacity of many operations were reduced because you could not use the same number of people to do things because of the social distancing. Okay, so and here's a picture. So this what happened. You can see here, right? The people here spend £1 billion in 3 weeks to stockpile at home because they were so worried, right? And here you can see what are the most popular products that was people were buying in the first few weeks. And you can see here the demand for the pasta went by about 74%, right? That is in the first week of March. And look at in here, children medicine, yeah, cough, cold and flu cures and so forth. And the toilet rolls, they were empty. We could not get hold of them at all. It was so difficult, so challenging for the supermarket, right? And here you can see how the demand increased over the period of time. So when people began to realize there are going to be some kind of lockdown, and you can see the demand gradually increase, and it causes all kind of operational kind of issues. Yeah. Now, that's the demand side. But not only that, what happened was people actually stopped going to supermarket because people here generally enjoy going to supermarket. They like to go around, look around what is there, see them, experience them. And I myself, for example, my family, we never done online shopping on groceries, right? We always, because we got a lot of supermarkets not in 5 minutes drive, so we never go online. Now we buy everything online, to be honest. Because obviously the risk of going there and whether they can maintain the social distancing or not and so forth. Now a lot of people actually move into the online shopping. Now online shopping work in two different ways. One, of course, you have the home deliveries, as in here you can see, right? So you order online and they deliver the stuff, you order, go home, or they have set up stations, what they call click and collect station. So you order online, you drive there, and they just put your order into your boot, or you can just collect it from there. Yeah. So there are a lot of changes, as you can see. The consumers, the customers start changing their habits and behaviors. So, and look at this table. This is quite important, actually. It highlights why the impact of COVID-19 is much more severe, right? So if you look at the geography, if you look at the disasters I mentioned before in Chennai and in China and in East Africa and so forth, right? They are pretty much on a regional basis or local basis, right? Whereas a COVID-19 actually has an impact across the world, right? And normally, when you look at in a typical disruptions, it's only few industries are affected or few services are affected. But in here, with the COVID-19, right, it's the goods, it's the services, the events, institutions, everything was affected. So it's very, very different. Yeah. And the type of interruption normally in the typical disruptions, what happened is the supply side get affected or factory shut down. Because of a strike, the transportation may not take place and so forth. But what happened with the COVID-19 is very different. It's not only the supply interruption, but also the consumer behavior change. So that means the demand change as well. Yep. Now, in terms of the prior planning experience, you can see there, with the typical disruption, it happened many, many times in different parts of the world. People learn from those experiences, and then they know how to react in the next time. Whereas in the COVID-19, right, the last global pandemic was in 1918. Yeah, so we don't have that experience how to deal with that global pandemic situations. I don't think I need to say the financial impact is very, very high. It's affecting economies around the world. And in terms of the duration and how long this is going to be, normally the typical disruptions are short term, right? It might last few days, few weeks, maybe a month or two. Whereas COVID-19 is still, it is very uncertain when that's going to be kind of a go away, right? And I think there will be a very long-term impacts because of COVID-19. Yep. So I'm sure you understand the last point as well. And there's a long-term public fear, because people are really, really careful because it's so dangerous, this particular virus, and people are still very concerned about how we're going to get out of this situation, right? So, and I want to give a little bit of insight about some of the strategies and technologies that use in this part of the world to avoid some of the problems. So, the one of the first thing the UK government did as a kind of a strategy, right, is we have in the UK we have very strict competition law, right, particularly with the supermarket, because the supermarkets, that industry, grocery industry, retail industry is very, very competitive in here. I'm sure it is same in India, right? So what the first thing they did was they relaxed those competition law so that the supermarket can start sharing their information, particularly on the stock levels. Because as I said, there's a shortage, so they start sharing information locally. So for example, I live in a city called Sheffield. So we have I suspect there are about 30, 40 supermarkets just in this city, right? Very large supermarkets. And they start sharing information. They also sharing information about this distribution, the delivery system and the facilities. Now this is not allowed in the normal situation, right? Not only that, also they allow the coordination, right? For example, they said, okay, they're going to, all the supermarket agrees that they're going to limit number of items you can buy. So still, you cannot have more than 3 packets of pasta, for example, yeah? And also, it allows the shops to work together and in a certain area, they can decide which one to open and which one might have a kind of a temporary closure and so forth. And also they allocated specific time slot for a certain group of consumers, particularly for the healthcare workers, the doctors and the nurses and so forth who are working for the National Health Service, and then the critically vulnerable people, and they all had the a specific time allocated. So, for example, from 8 to 9 in the morning, the priority, only the National Health Service workers can do shopping and so forth. So that's what happened at the government level. So let me give an example how Tesco, I'm sure you heard about Tesco. This is the largest supermarket chain in the country, in the UK. I believe they have operation in your part of the world as well. Now, Tesco, back in 2016, they never knew whether COVID going to come through or not, right? But they actually simulated a scenario, right? And they thought they might have a scenario where they had to shut down their head office completely. It might be, for example, a terrorist attack, or could be something else, some kind of emergency. And what it is, actually, they did this simulated exercise, and they learn a lot of things, and they learn actually what technologies they possibly could use if they had to work from home. So, for example, they actually started using Zoom about nearly 2-3 years ago, and they were running a number of management meetings just using the online capabilities, right? So they were well prepared, right? So you can see within 10 days, they managed to actually employ about 35,000 extra workers to cope up with the extra demand. That is across the country. And also they managed to increase the home deliveries because, as I said, the demand went up, people moving to the online purchasing, and demand went by about 20%, right? And they managed to, not the demand, I'm sorry, they managed to increase the home deliveries by about 20%. Right. So that's the, how one of the supermarket actually managed the situation. Now, you probably heard about PPE, personal protection equipment, right? Because of this, the outbreak, not only the public, but also particularly the healthcare workers need a lot of PPEs, right? The masks, the gowns, goggles, and so forth, right? And there's a serious issue in many parts of the Europe. There's a real threat to the healthcare workers because there was a shortage. Now, because the supply chains are not working and everybody wanted this in, the production capacity was not big enough to meet the demand and so forth. So the various companies start looking at how they can use technology to address some of these problems quickly. So here's an example. Company called Airbus, they don't make visors, they normally make aircraft, but they actually use their 3D printed machines to produce visors very, very quickly for the health service. That's one example. And actually, there's a global initiative, right? Those who have 3D printing capabilities, they work together, they shared information, and they start actually producing many PPEs using 3D kind of technologies. So that's quite an interesting development, and you can see how actually technology kind of kick in to address some of the issues. Okay, so let's talk about the future directions, right? And here you can see, this is I copied from one of the reputable kind of publications, and they done a survey, and they say certainly, right, there'll be changes, significant changes, long-term kind of changes in supply chain strategies post-COVID. Okay, so I'll put them in 3 different kind of area. So in the industry side or the supply chain side, remember at the very beginning, I said most of the supply chains are global. I think people start rethinking about it now, right? So there's a lot of discussion taking place in here now, and how to actually simplify and how to get more local and national suppliers involved and so forth. And there's a big push for technologies, artificial intelligence, automation, robotics, and so forth. Now people realize the mobile working actually is quite effective in certain situations. So in some areas, I think people would start working in more in the online, and the customer expectation management will be a big thing in the future, because customer expectation will change, short term, medium term, and long term. Yeah. And also actually they learn how to collaborate with the competitors. And inventory management, and perhaps improving the supply chain visibility, so the companies actually can see what happened in their supply chains. Now, when you come to the consumer side, right, there's no doubt online purchasing will grow, right? There are very, very clear signs in this part of the world. People now beginning to like online purchasing rather than going to supermarket and so forth, right? And there'll be high demand for delivery service. Maybe the demand for the luxury items might decline in short term and the medium term. And certainly people are very concerned about the health, their own health. So the demand for the health products and the health food will go, right? And I think there's a bit of shift to more home cooking. Yep. Now, this is with the supply chain, but not only that, actually, I think there's a bit of impact on the education side as well. Because now, for the first time, I think people used to hear mainly from the newspapers and from the TV channels and from other medias, the word supply chain. A lot of people ask, now they say, what is supply chain, right? So I think there will be a big demand for supply chain professionals in the future, because the supply chain need to transform themselves, and they need the people with the new skill and the understanding with the state of the art technologies and so forth. So I think actually supply chain management could become more popular. Yeah. However, supply chain management courses need to change themselves as well, because most of the supply chain management courses are very much dominated by management subjects. But now the technology and the IT play a bigger role. Therefore, I think the courses need to change to reflect those requirements as well. Yeah. So a couple of things to show you. I think this is the supply chain digitization, and this is more about how the things like automation, the robotics, various IT technologies might be used in the future, because there are companies using some of these technologies now, but I think there will be a very big push in the future to automate supply chains wherever it is possible, and also to see how the companies actually can build what we call resilient supply chain, and how to design agile supply chain, and the collaboration will be a kind of a bigger part of that, and perhaps re-engineering the current supply chains as well, and of course the risk, identify the risks and see how they can be kind of minimized. Very last slide. This question, will COVID-19 change global supply chain forever? I think answer is a very strong yes. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for for such an insightful discussion. Actually,
Thank you very much.
I really appreciate the flow of the presentation, how you have taken from what was happening to the strategies, what the future is, and what we need to actually also do. As in, this is something that everyone was looking for. Dr. Vishal, I would request you to take ahead with the questions if there are any.
So there are questions on YouTube live that due to COVID-19, both the demand and supply of the goods have been affected severely. So what potential strategy should be on by the government in order to cope with this situation?
Vishal, it was not very clear. Could you repeat that again, please? Yeah.
The question is due to COVID-19, both the demand and supply of the goods have been affected severely. So, what
Yeah.
potential strategies should a government do in this situation of COVID-19?
Yeah, as I explained, if I understood your question correctly, as I explained in my presentation, one of the things they had to do was actually encourage the collaboration between supply chains, because as a kind of a strategy, because then they can because according to particularly in the UK, the competition law is very, very tough. Yeah, they are not allowed to actually work together. But in this situation, they change that one very quickly, and they allow the companies to work together. Did I answer?
Yes, question from Dr. Poonam Juneja that most of the items being used by Corona warriors are one-time use items. What is the impact it is going to have on environment when these are being disposed of in large such numbers?
Vishal, the line is breaking actually, to be honest. I'm very sorry. I did not hear the question very clearly.
I'll repeat the question. Most of the items being used by Corona warriors are one-time use items. What is the impact it is going to have on environment when these are being disposed of in such large numbers?
What are the last part? Sorry, for some reason.
So basically, he's asking what is the impact the things with COVID frontline workers they are using, like the mask or the gloves they are using, when they are getting disposed of. What is the impact? Because they are getting disposed of in large numbers because they are single use.
Impact of what? Sorry, impact of?
So can I just reiterate the entire thing? So what they meant to say is basically, if say there are large number of masks, large number of sanitizers, or all these things that is being used right now during the crisis time. So these things are being disposed in large numbers. Does these things have an impact on the environment basically?
Environment, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Right. Okay. Thanks so much. Yeah, I can hear you now clearly. Right.
Yes.
Okay. Maybe it's a problem in my side. Absolutely. Because normally the PPEs, the mask and everything are disposed. It will have an impact on the environment, and I believe I'm not expert in that area, but I believe that the most of these items obviously could be recycled, but also I think there's now. Particularly with the gowns and so forth, they normally use only once, but I think now there's a kind of rethinking about that one and to see whether they can be actually washed and used again within hospital, because the situation of that bad at particular points.
Yeah, over to you, Pradeep.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot for such enlightening words, first of all. And, sir, not only I think COVID has taught us to cook food, but also to work at our place, I think. As in, we are maids right now at our place, so we know how to actually manage other things right now. So that's really enlightening, sir. Thank you for those wisdom words. As in, it was great, knowing things from you. We would take the other speaker right now on board.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay.
I want to highlight, as in Professor Terence Pereira had, highlighted few things also, because I am a consultant, and you might have seen that it's just not just across one particular medium that things are happening. If you see from media perspective also, like, we see that Ramayana and Mahabharata is being telecast on DD National. But have you ever noticed that it's also coming on Colors and Star Plus and all these channels also? The reason is because people, they don't have the bandwidth for production. It is very difficult for actors to go out and do the series and all. In fact, I would give you a classic example is many movies are coming on OTT platform, like the movie of Ayushmann Khurrana and Amitabh Bachchan, which is going to be aired on Amazon Prime. Just imagine what would happen and it's basically technology, right? If that technology would have not been there, no one actually, people who like to go on to the theaters, it would have been difficult for them to stream such amazing movies. So it's not an impact only at one sector, but globally it has been impacted. So without much ado, I would take the next speaker over here, Dr. Pankaj Kumar Johan from Jamia Hamdard University in Delhi. He has received a PhD in the area of structural biology from IMTech CSIR Chandigarh. He has a postdoctoral at Johns Hopkins University, USA, and also worked as a scientist for tuberculosis over there. His research focuses on development of new therapeutic treatment of cancer and infectious diseases. He has been awarded with Helen B. Tosef Award at Johns Hopkins University and the Dr. V.C. Vora PhD thesis at IMTech CSIR. Apart from this, he is also an inventor for small molecules, TB drugs, anti-cancer drugs, and have several international patents to his credit. Over to you, sir. Please enlighten with your words over here in this session. Thanks a lot. So, are you able to connect to the session? Dr. Vishal, can check?
He's
Yes,
here. I can.
Hi, hello, Dr. Pradeep. Yes, I'm coming. Yes,
Hi, sir.
I'm good. Thank you. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, sure.
I'm just trying to share my PPT with you. Okay. So, first of all, I thank you, Dr. Pradeep. And thank you, Dr. Vishal and Dr. Purnima and Dr. Charu, Principal BNC College. I listened this Dr. Pereira's talk. It was really interesting, and he gave a real insight about supply chain disruption because of COVID and global changes that are happening. And I see these things in India also happening a lot. So can you see my PPT clearly?
Yes, very much, very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So Dr. Pradeep has already introduced me, so I don't need to introduce myself. So today I will speak about COVID. Where do we stand actually in fighting it? Because there are a lot of lab whole worldwide in healthcare or in hardcore research. They are trying to do something to fight the COVID. It's a global subject right now. So in last 3, 4, 5 months, everybody of you might know about virus. What virus it is, and you also know about how does it look, and you also might not now know about that it basically the virus interacts with human cells, and then it interacts with some human receptors, and then some of the human protease, human factors cleave of the viral proteins to allow the virus to enter the cell. So I won't go into details about the mechanism of virus infection. Rather, I would focus more on transmission, treatments, and ongoing challenges that actually we may have to face in upcoming time. So it's really a mystery. There are very good papers coming up from last 4 or 5 months on the mystery of transmission of this COVID-19 virus. So it's very obvious. If you go search online, you will find that there are papers coming on coronavirus from last almost 15, 16 years, 17 years. And scientific fraternity is warning that there might be a pandemic one day. Based on the recurring coronavirus in the form of whether it's SARS or MERS is coming up with time, they warn that the time may come, then this might turn into a pandemic. And it happened now, you can see, obviously. So now there are a lot of theories coming. Some are blaming China, some are, conspiracies, some are, natural selection, some are natural transmission. So here is a subject-wise elaboration here. So the coronavirus is found in bats. It's very well known. So and then in China, there are livestock things where the virus from animals from bat might have transmitted to animals in the wet market, and from there it's to human, and then so forth. Now, one thing is there for sure: the coronavirus that came out from bat does not cause infection in humans. It came out that coronavirus does not bind with human cells. So there has been an evolution with time, and this evolution has not happened in just one day. So we believe that the virus might have transmitted to animals, some mammals, in the intermediate form, and then slowly it started evolving, based on the virus evolved based on the host cell, and then from those it started, it came into humans, and then now you see it. So and then the transmission happened, through community transmission, through international travels, in the hospitals, nosocomial transmissions. It happens so quick internationally. So now one of the students raised the question yesterday when Dr. Kang was presenting her work. I want to highlight that point. So I read a few very good articles, which are well-established articles from journals online, and it's coming up that the transmission of this COVID-19 virus is basically can be both asymptomatic and symptomatic. The reason is why. Let me tell you. This virus causes infection both in upper respiratory as well as lower respiratory, and so it is easy to transmit through aerosols in the air. And so anybody who is even asymptomatic but has infection, asymptomatic means his immunity is good. He is young and his immunity is good, and he can tolerate the infection. And there are who are weak, less immunity, they succumb to infection. And there is an article which came in New England Journal of Medicine. It's a very, extremely, very highly regarded journal internationally. They published an article in Fab that the rapid spread of COVID-19 across globe suggests the transmission happened most probably through asymptomatic person, because it's impossible to transmit the virus globally in such a short span of time. And so they suggest that there's a broader need to include asymptomatic person for diagnostic testing. So when we look at the asymptomatic and symptomatic state, we should look at the mortality rate and what are the biggest population of humans that may get affected by this virus. Dr. Kang also has addressed a lot about it yesterday. So I want to show the numbers here today. When we compare the whole world, India has a suboptimal number of mortality rate, 3.4 percent, and then it is very, very extremely, not low, but not high, medium state. And when we look at the death rate, so most of the elderly, our beloved elderly people, they are most impacted by this virus. It's basically an age-based phenomena, age-based immunity. With time, the immunity goes down, and our lungs, they are not able to cope the infection. So, and otherwise, in young people, this virus is not that impactful. However, in any age bar, in any age, when if somebody has a other morbidity, as Dr. Kang yesterday spoke, other morbidities. So other morbidities might be diabetes, respiratory infections, hypertension, cardiovascular disease. So anybody who is weak because of these comorbidities is very prone to the fatality because of this COVID-19 infection. So we have to keep safe our those beloved elderlies and those people who are weaker by their immunities. Now, there's a lot of things going on. How to detect, how to diagnose this COVID-19 quickly, and because the virus is in the whole world, so there are a lot of limitations in diagnostics. In many countries, in many cities, many states, there are limited number of diagnostics for detecting the virus. So I want to go into more technical details about most common diagnostics right now ongoing with COVID-19. So number one is RT-PCR, the most common going on. There are around like more than 200 labs in India, including ICMR labs, CSIR labs, including my own Jamia Hamdard. We have government has assigned these facilities to test the COVID-19 using RT-PCR. What is RT-PCR? Is simply the RNA is extracted from the swab, using swab from nose or from the throat, and then the RNA is purified, and then there's a kit for that in which there are primers of the virus which bind to the RNA of the virus, and then they amplify the virus RNA to detect some signals, because you can't detect this RNA directly. So we have to have some colorful signals or something fluorescence based signals on the machine. So when there's a amplification of the RNA of the virus, we give it signals. So if the signals are high, it means it's a positive. If there's no signals, it means there was no RNA and it's negative. Likewise, there is an antibody reduction kit in which we have a paper strip, like a nitrocellulose-based strip, where we have immobilized a mice or some other antibody as control, and then human antibody like IgG or IgM. And then when we add the virus sample to it, the virus sample antigens will bind to these antibodies and they give a color. And this is a positive control. It means it will always show the color. And then otherwise, these are the test things. Whether it can give both for IgM antibody as well as for IgG antibodies. So now, let's look at preventive and treatment options. Social distancing has come up one of the best approach, whether it was in early 1918 with the Spanish flu or now happening with COVID-19. Social distancing is one of the most best approach to buy time and to delay the rate of infection. We were not prepared, so especially in a country like India with limited number of resources, we needed time. And believe me, social distancing with lockdown approach has really helped us to prepare well in time. And so it also depends a lot on the country-wise about what is the healthcare system, what is the efficiency of the healthcare system. So we in India got a good amount of time to improve and prepare our health system to cope up with the number of upcoming cases of infection. So but and other options. If you look at China, China is also a traditional country. They follow a lot of traditional therapies like India, and their secret for controlling the COVID outbreak is their traditional Chinese medicines. There's the paper which came in a very high impact journal, New England Journal of Medicine, which shows that in China they have used a combination of both Chinese traditional combination mixture plus other antiviral protocols like TNF interferons or TNF alpha or some other antiviral drug combinations. And this really is really helpful. So in India we have a huge a huge source of herbal and Ayurveda medicines that should be tried actually. And IUS is doing a lot in that area in India. So other than herbal, therapies, the whole world is looking to search for a broad spectrum antiviral drugs, and this is happening from very early from January, and there's a whole list of these antivirus drugs which have been used in some form, either for HIV, for SARS, for MERS, or for herpes, for influenza, or anything. There's a whole list of drugs which different countries and scientists have been trying to test on COVID-19. And you can see here one of the drugs, favipiravir. It's a RNA polymerase inhibitor. It is under phase 2 and phase 3 trial going on. And then remdesivir is already in phase 3 trial. And there are more drugs like chloroquine, hydrochloroquine, which are already also in trials. And WHO has again suggested to test hydroxychloroquine on patients, to further confirm its efficacy against the COVID-19. Because hydroxychloroquine is easily available, is cheaper. Yeah, and otherwise this favipiravir and remdesivir may be expensive. So now, only this month, a few countries have started, recommending favipiravir drug for treatment of COVID-19. Even Russia, China, and India. India also is now thinking about it. It's basically a RNA virus RNA polymerase inhibitor, and can be a good drug. It's coming up soon in time, I think so. I hope so. And then other drug, remdesivir, Dr. Kang also mentioned about it yesterday. It's a good drug. It's also a RNA-dependent RNA polymerase, a viral RNA polymerase. Inhibit it, and then it basically inhibits the virus replication in the host. This drug is already approved in India, I think so. And it is a company, Gilead something, which is actually making it in India. It approves the Gilead company to make in India. So now, beside drugs, natural therapy, or herbals, the vaccine, the whole world is talking about vaccine development. Why do we need vaccine? Because vaccines can be preventive, not just treatment. If we vaccinate whole population, something like polio or something like other vaccines, it's a preventive approach, and we really need a vaccine, for this virus. There are many good things going on at the front of vaccine development globally. For example, BCG. BCG is well known. Most of the infants in India and world, infants are being vaccinated with BCG for TB. But later on, in my own lab even at Johns Hopkins, we find that BCG can be used for cancer treatment. It can be used for other infections as well, because BCG it activates the immunity in the body, innate immunity in the body, which allows the other infections to fight with. So University of Melbourne, they are doing trials, they are phase 2, phase 3 trials on it. And then there's an mRNA-based vaccine by Moderna. It is an RNA vaccine which injected in the body, and the RNA enters the cell, and it makes virus particles. And then the virus proteins are made, and against them, our body makes antibodies to fight the infection. And then AD5 it's an adenovirus vector-based vaccine made by CanSino Bio. It's a phase 1 trial going on, in which one of the protein of the virus, which bind with the host RBD, is actually introduced into the adenovirus vaccine. Adenovirus is a virus which commonly cause infection in human, and this is a avirulent strain of adenovirus vector, so it does not cause any harm in the humans. Another adenovirus vaccine by University of Oxford. This is under phase 3 trial going on, where the same thing, like it's a recombinant adenovirus with some part of the coronavirus 92. It goes in the body, it causes infection, and then with infection, the virus particles are made to make antibodies. Similarly, there are some other DNA vaccine, RNA vaccine are there, which are in the trial, and a few more whole virus inactivated vaccine are also on the trial by in China as well as by Serum Institute of India. They are undergoing right now. So now, what are we are doing everything. The world is doing best. We are doing best to fight COVID-19. Whether it's at economic front, whether it's at health front, we are doing our best. But still, there are more upcoming challenges. The most important one is slowdown of economy. As Dr. Pereira has discussed about it, highlighted these things, what is happening step by step in a simplified form. So, and then one of the more, as a scientist, I want to address one of the most upcoming challenge that the whole world may face with time. I'm not scaring you, but I'm informing you that the virus is basically mutating a lot. And you can see here, the virus is making a lot of clades. So there was one virus, and then a lot of different mutations happen. And then you can see here, a lot of clades are being formed, nucleating with time. And then they become bigger with time. So now the question comes, and you see here, these are some of the proteins of the virus. And most of the mutations are happening in this a big protein, ORF1, and then this S protein, which has a human binding capacity. So this virus is still evolving, mutating with time. Now we don't know this virus is evolving, mutating to adjust in the humans more, or just to survive, or to for the fitness of its thermodynamics in the humans. We do not know. That we have to understand. But the biggest thing that may happen because of this thing is the problem that we can face is that the vaccine. Yes,
Dr. Pankaj, I'm sorry to interrupt. We are running a little short of time.
Okay.
So if we can, conclude the session as soon as possible.
Sure. Yeah, I'm done actually. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Doctor.
So, yes, please. So basically, my lab basically they propose some epitope-based vaccine, where some of the parts of the protein of the virus, the antibody of humans bind to them, and the virus is mutating in them. So we propose that it's possible to design country-wise epitope-based vaccine, which may work country-wise. Overall, I want to stop here. I want to highlight the positive things that has happened in the pandemic. The yoga has coming up, Ayurveda is coming up, and the opportunity of India is coming up soon. So these are positive things. And also we learn that the river can clean themselves without efforts. We don't need to spend billions of dollars on them. And nature is cleaning themselves. And there's a rapid improvement in the air quality itself in time, in short span. So the nature is reviving, reclaiming itself. We don't need to make efforts. We just have to not to disturb it. So this is my group. I want to acknowledge a big team. And these are my BSc students who published this research on the coronavirus only 3 days back. This is my whole team in my lab group. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. It's great, you have highlighted on several issues like your India's low mortality rate, the causes of transmission of COVID, basically the detection of COVID-19 infection, PCR and antibody detection kit, and what the precautions that needs to be taken. Dr. Vishal, if we have any questions further, can we?
Yes.
Yeah, please.
Yes. Am I audible?
Yes,
Yes,
very,
yes, sure.
very.
Yeah. Sir, there is a question from YouTube Live. As lockdown was removed from most part of the country and the number of patients of COVID has been increasing, so how will this pandemic situation overcome on such large scale?
So see, we have more time to prepare about it. It's basically it's up to us now. See, we know we understand the healthcare system of India very well. So we have to prepare with ourselves. We have to take care of ourselves. We have to bring in practice. The safety things. It's up to us basically that we have to prepare. Just I'm not expert in that, but yes, that I would say.
So there
There
is
is
as healthcare system is not much efficient in India, and we are on 6th number COVID spread in the world. But if we consider population, did our government handle the situation in a commendable manner?
I think yes. I would appreciate government actually. Yes, they have, despite their limitations, they have done a very good job actually. If there would have not been lockdown, we would have at least 20-30 lakh by now actually. So we are prepared, and India was not prepared actually. So there's a huge financially destitute population in India who is not prepared. So we are prepared for that now. Even if it happens, if the pandemic goes up more and more, the more infection goes in India, we are much in a better state than earlier in March.
Thank you, sir. There's one more question. People are testing all medicines.
query
Body. As all the medicine have some side effect, is it okay to give it to all together? It's a last question.
I would say no. I would not recommend anybody to take medicine without prescription from doctor. Every medicine has some sort of side effects, certainly. So without prescription, I would not recommend anybody to take medicines. And no, we can't take all together. It may kill us. So we have to take the medicines on prescription. The very first thing I would recommend: keep your health strong. Keep on herbal yoga. Try to keep your do exercise daily. And keep your lungs strong. The virus will not harm you. It's not that dangerous. Believe me, it's just dangerous for people who are less immune.
over to you, Pradeep.
Thank you, sir. It was great. Like Professor Pereira, and Dr. Pankaj, both of you was amazingly good. I learned a lot from your sessions. One was from the economy side, another was from more of a healthcare perspective. So it gave an insight to all the participants who were there. And I also thank the college to give me an opportunity to actually, take over and be chairing this particular webinar session. Dr. Vishal, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Dr. Pankaj and Dr. Pradeep, for being here and being so supportive. Thank you so much to both of you.
Thank you.
So we would proceed with our young scientist talks. So I am calling them as young scientists because as compared to our invited speakers, they are young, but they are scientists in their fields. So let us start with the first young scientist, Dr. Paras Gore. He works at Biological Research Center, Hungary. He is working on targeting post-replication repair for cancer therapies. So, Dr. Paras Gore, I invite you. Please go ahead with your presentation.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Am I audible and visible to you all?
Yes, you are audible as well as visible. Very well.
My slides are visible?
Yes, they are.
Okay. So thank you very much, Vishal, for inviting me for this talk. And I would like to thank the organizing committee of this conference and the college. So today I'm going to summarize my PhD work in this. It's going to be a little bit off topic from the COVID-19 and pandemic theme. So maybe it will be enjoyable for you just for a change. So yeah, I'm going to talk about targeting post-replication repair for cancer therapeutics. So my work is basically for drug development, and I'm more involved in assay development and screening the chemical compounds and checking whether we have some potential hit that can be used as a drug lead. So I'm working in the mutagenesis and carcinogenesis research group in Hungary. So, okay, I would like to start with the introduction. What is DNA damage? What is DNA repair? And what is post-replication repair? So, as we all know that cells are continuously exposed to various kind of damages, and there are like UV radiation, cellular metabolism, that is like endogenous damage, mechanical shearing, viral infections, and there are many factors which causes damage to a DNA. So once there is a damage in the DNA in the cell, that can trigger various output mechanisms to in response to the damage. And one of them is DNA repair, where my work is focused. So once the damage has happened, the body has a specialized mechanism to heal the damage in the cell, so that the cell can live happily, and there will be no diseases related to the damage. So there are specialized classical repair mechanisms which are involved in repair of the damages. For example, we can see here in this slide, there can be single strand break repair or double strand break repair, and it has further different kind of repair mechanisms. So these are very important mechanisms, and all these mechanisms involves a myriad of proteins. So if there is if any of the genes which are going to code these DNA repair proteins are not good, they have some mutations, so there can be a lot of diseases. For example, breast cancer, there are genes BRCA1 and BRCA2 that can cause breast cancer. There is NVS gene which is involved in Niemann-Gain breakage syndrome, Bloom helicase gene which is involved in Bloom syndrome, etc. So these repair genes are really important, and mutations in them can lead to various diseases. So what happens when the damage is there? There is a repair mechanism which basically repairs the damage, but sometimes the damage left unrepaired. These classical repair mechanisms are not able to repair the damage. So what happens? When the cell divides, there is a process called replication, DNA replication. And when replication happens, there is a fork-like structure forms which proceeds. And when the damage remains there, unable to get healed before the replication, it can stop the replication fork. So we call it stalled replication fork. And at this, at the replication fork, there is a special protein called pCNA. It undergoes a post-translational modification. So what is post-translational modification? This protein undergoes it gets modified by another protein moiety called ubiquitin, and this post-translational modification is known as ubiquitination. So the damage was there, it left unrepaired, it stalls the replication fork, and then this signals the pCNA to undergo ubiquitination, and this ubiquitination works as a switch to change the classical DNA polymerases, which generally replicate the normal replication fork without damages, but it is unable to replicate the fork which encounters a lesion. So this pCNA works as a molecular switch. It switches the classical DNA polymerases with a special polymerases called TLS DNA polymerases, and then it throws this the replication fork for this special process called translation DNA synthesis. So what happens? This this damage do not get repaired. Instead, it gets bypassed. So basically, TLS polymerases just ignores it and carries on the replication. So that is called TLS synthesis, translation DNA synthesis. So this is basically error prone. There is a high chance that this lesion can cause further cancer. So what we are doing in our group, we are trying to stop this process of ubiquitination of pCNA by small molecule inhibitors. So we have developed an assay for ubiquitination, and we are screening various chemical libraries, and we are interested to find out a good target which can stop this, so that we can avoid this TLS borne cancer. And as we also basically what happens currently in cancer therapeutics, most of the drugs which target cancer are targeting DNA. And when these drugs are taken, they are sometimes off target. So they can do a DNA damage in healthy cells as well. So that when there is a DNA damage in healthy cells, there is a chance those healthy cells during replication can undergo TLS synthesis, which is error prone and can lead to cancer, as we see here. TLS can cause mutagenesis, carcinogenesis, and tumor progression. So the drug what we are trying to discover, drug lead, can be taken together with the currently established cancer therapeutics, and it will be a good combination drug. So we are working on this. So here is the whole protocol, how this drug discovery happens, right from the beginning to the end when you get the drug lead. So first part of the drug discovery is assay development. So as I mentioned, there is a specific ubiquitination process happening. So we have developed an in vitro assay for pCNA ubiquitination. We have developed the assay. After that, we screen the compounds. There are like libraries, many thousands of compounds we screen for on the assay what we have developed. And after that, we see whether there is some inhibition on ubiquitination or not. If there is inhibition, that is called hit. We get the hit and we pick that hit. And then we do further screening. So we call it secondary screening. So ubiquitination is a multi-protein step. So there are many proteins are involved in the ubiquitination cascade. So we do secondary screening so that we can know which specific step is involved in the inhibition of pCNA or a target protein. And after that, we do carry out some studies like docking studies to see what is docking studies or simulation studies, what is the mechanism of action, what changes the small molecules which we have identified or will identify does to a protein target. And once we know, we carry out biological evaluation and we see human cells, how it is actually affecting, and then we get some primary drug lead or a research probe. So
I'm sorry to interrupt. Please conclude in 2 minutes since we are running late.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So we have developed an assay and we could nicely see the ubiquitination signal with our assay. As we can see, there is a ubiquitination, and so ATP is kind of we add ATP and it does the ubiquitination, and we could see very good ubiquitination signal. And with the screening, we discovered EGCG, which is actually apigallocatechin gallate. It's present in green tea in abundant quantity, and we found out it's very active for the inhibition of ubiquitination. We study EGCG and other related molecules for the ubiquitination assay, and we found out that all the many of the molecules which are closely related with EGCG are showing inhibition. So what we see here is IC50. IC50 is half maximum inhibitory concentration. So at this dose, they were all inhibiting, and some molecules did not show inhibition, which we concluded as inactive. So here is the ubiquitination cascade. So this is the molecule target we were interested to find. This is a target protein we were interested to find inhibitor for. So we found out the molecule that we discovered, EGCG, targets the first protein in the cascade. And we carried out experiments for that, and we found out that yes, that's true, that first protein is being targeted. And similarly, there are other analogs what we studied, they also showed some inhibition, and some were inactive, what we can see here, concluded inactive. And we carried out some studies in human cells, and we found out that EGCG, what we discovered as a target of pCNA ubiquitination, inhibitor of ubiquitination, also works in human cells. It actually protects the cells through cytotoxic effects of the EGCG compound. So if we see here in human cells, when we overexpress the UBA1 protein, the EGCG actually protects the cells, relative cell survival, and cell survives. So the molecule, what we discovered, it actually helped the cells to live over cytotoxicity of the compound. And we see the ubiquitination level in overall human cells, and we saw that yes, it inhibits the ubiquitination. When we go higher in concentration, there is a lesser of ubiquitination. So here we have discovered EGCG as a lead, which inhibits BCNA ubiquitination, which is a key step in translation DNA synthesis related cancer development. And we discovered other molecules as well, which shows inhibition. And yesterday I was actually checking few articles, and I found out that this there is a preprint has just discovered that EGCG has been shown to target the spike proteins. So the SARS-CoV-2 virus has various proteins. The spike protein on the surface is a protein which makes contacts with the human cells with ACE2 receptors in lungs. And the studies show, so it was a docking computational paper. They have not done proper experiments, but the docking, they have shown that EGCG, and they actually tested various EGCG and related molecules, and they found out that EGCG is the best hit, which actually inhibits the spike protein to make it binds with the spike protein of SARS-CoV-2 virus. Thus, it can be actually it needs further research to address whether the exact mechanism of action and can be used or not. But EGCG, since it's a green tea molecule, it is very herbal, and EGCG has already known to have its anti-inflammatory, antioxidant. We discovered as anti-ubiquitination, which is protecting cancer development through TLS. And there are many health benefits of EGCG. And this new discovery, which just came out through docking experiments, proves that another beneficial effect of EGCG. So I would like to conclude my talk that EGCG is really health beneficial molecule, which is present in green tea. We should all drink green tea. And in this time of COVID-19, and it has no side effects. It's absolutely herbal. So yeah, so our discovery of ubiquitination we have published lately in these two articles. And there is actually a saying, there is a book of tea which was written in Japan by Okakura Kakuzo. And it says tea began as a medicine and grew into a beverage. And that is true. And so basically, yeah, I would like to thank you all for listening my talk. And I would like to acknowledge my colleagues who I have worked with this on the project. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Paras. I have gone through your paper that is published in Nature Scientific Reports. That is a very good paper, I must say. So I would like to ask a question. How cancer and COVID are related? I mean, how dangerous is COVID to cancer patients?
Well, actually, I was actually checking some articles to find the link between this, but there are no exact actually links available. But since the cancer patients who are undergoing, they are more at risk. They are not as such. Actually, I couldn't find any publication which says scientifically any exact proof of linking these two. But any patient, whether it's HIV positive, AIDS, cancer, or any serious diseases, they are just, since they have a weaker immune system, they are at higher risk. But there are no as such really link between that.
Thank you so much, Paras. We will be sending you other questions on your email, and you can address them since we are running short on time. Thank you so much for being here.
Okay, thank you.
I would like to invite our next young scientist speakers. Ms. Bhumika Kapoor, Assistant Professor, Jesus and Mary College, Delhi University, along with Ms. Neha Mathod from Lady Irving College, Delhi University. They will be talking about predicting intention to perform environmental behavior amidst COVID-19 using theory of plant behavior. So over to you, Bhumika and Neha, and I welcome you both.
Thank you so much. We are going to start our presentation. One second. Is the screen visible to everyone?
Yes, visible.
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to make my presentation on a paper titled Take Intention to Perform Pro-Environmental Behavior amidst COVID-19 using the theory of plant behavior. And I would like to start with a brief background to our study, as it is important to understand the impact of man-environment interaction in the emergence of this COVID-19 virus. It is important because as the available evidence suggests that COVID-19 has been originated from a zoonotic source, which means that it has been passed from animals to humans. And this is as a result of an increase in harmful interaction between humans and wildlife, which is primarily for reasons like wildlife trade, consumption of animal-based products, science experiments, and more. And why this COVID-19, which was originated in a single city of China, has now widespread to all the countries around the globe, is a reason of an accelerated globalization, which means that there has been an increased movement of people, goods across borders, leading to the widespread of the virus. Also, moving forward, if we realize that the COVID-19 has posed some serious environment and sustainability challenges that needs to be dealt with, and some of them which needs to be dealt at with immediate attention are medical waste. Because of the increased use of PPE, there is an abundance of biomedical waste that needs to be handled, disposed of as per the laws and norms, and also the air quality. It has been scientifically suggested that areas with high density of pollutants are linked with severe mortality rates. So it's important because coronavirus is a respiratory disease. It's important to maintain the air quality of our country, and especially in areas like Delhi, where there is such a bad quality of air, and most of it is because of vehicular transmission. It is important that we as people make some engage in pro-environmental behavior to ensure the air quality is improved. Also, some medium-term challenges would be now, because we are going through an unlocking phase and the restrictions on lockdown have eased up. So it's important now, we do not need to have another lockdown to have this kind of environmental change that we have witnessed during the lockdown. And for that, we need a green recovery. We need to ensure that the ecology and the economy are balanced and there's a complete harmony between the two. And looking at the long-term challenges would be because there has been a realization that coronavirus has made us that we are not going to be ready for the future health emergencies or the environmental emergencies. So we need to be more prepared as a society. We need to have a resilient and sustainable society with help of providing sustainable habitat for people, also with proper urban planning methods and ensuring that the wastewater management is ensured. And we need to have very sustainable cities planned in order to make sure that we are equipped with tools to handle this kind of emergencies if happens so. Also, looking at the Atmanirbhar movement now, we are going to set up a lot of local manufacturing units, domestic units. We need to address the environmental concerns at the early start so that we do not have to look at them later and see their environmental impact. And those concerns are addressed at a very early stage. Moving forward, because there has been a lot of environmental changes because of the COVID-19 response, the environment has gotten impacted not just in the country but also globally. It has been reported. If you talk about the air quality levels, they have significantly improved in areas like Delhi, especially. They have been 40 to 50% of improvement. It's primarily because of the reduced human activities and the lockdown. Similarly, because of the low vehicular movement, the noise levels have really dropped. And similarly, the water quality levels have really improved in several points, monitoring points in Ganges. It has been found that the water quality has really significantly improved, suitable for bathing, ritual sipping, and more. And because of all the environmental changes, and we are not just the only beneficiaries of these changes, the wildlife has also benefited from this change, and they have been seen outside chirping outside our windows, which may be not a reason of the COVID-19 lockdown, but also that we as humans have sobered up to see the changes and see what the environment really has for us. So against this backdrop, we did our study to see that how much awareness the people have about their actions on the environment. It is important to see their interconnected relationship with the ecology, and also this COVID-19 has brought the perfect opportunity for us to reevaluate our relationship and to maybe make some more sustainable choices and to engage in pro-environmental behavior so that we have a very environmental sustainable world to live in.
So moving on, in terms of our study, obviously the most important step here is that people should engage in actual behavior change. So in order to understand how this can pan out, we've looked at theory of planned behavior as a theoretical framework. This particular theory talks about factors which underlie behavior change. And in this context, obviously, the target behavior would be pro-environmental behavior. Pro-environmental behavior is any behavior which positively contributes to the environment or reduces the negative impact of our actions on the environment. The model talks about basically 4 important things, starting with attitude. Attitude basically is an evaluation of any idea, entity, object. In this case, obviously, the target behavior would be pro-environmental behavior. So a person needs to have a positive attitude towards pro-environmental behavior. Secondly, it's important that people around us, especially those people we are concerned with or we are related to, family, friends, peers, these people are also concerned about that specific target behavior. So if we have people around us who are also environmental conscious and who motivate us or, pressurize us to engage in environmental conscious activities, then that will also help. Thirdly, it's important that we also feel a personal sense of control. I may have a positive attitude, I may have people around me convincing me to change my behavior, but if I do not think I can actually bring about change, then it will all fall flat. So these 3 need to be in cohesion with each other. When these 3 are present, it leads to a positive intention towards performing that behavior and hopefully ultimately that behavior itself. One thing that we've extended in this model is the awareness component that my colleague pointed out. The fact that COVID-19 is making us conscious of our choices, the fact that we can now see how our actions are responsible for many kinds of environmental outcomes. We were hoping that maybe this time has led to some reevaluation in people's minds, and maybe that has changed their attitude, the subjective norms around this thing, and maybe their PDC. So going forward, we had one overarching research question, which was basically, does the proposed model predict participants' intention to perform pro-environmental behavior? And within that, we had 4 more specific questions: whether the emergence of COVID-19 has allowed an increasing awareness of the consequences of man-environment interaction, whether an increasing awareness towards environmental issues have brought a perceived change in people's attitude towards environmental issues, thirdly, whether people reported an expectation from their reference groups with respect to adopting pro-environmental behavior. Reference groups again would be friends, family, peers, and whether the respondents reported experiencing any behavioral control for bringing about these changes. And to assess this, we basically came up with a 5-point record type scale, which covered all the variables under study. We also subjected this to a reliability assessment, and the Cronbach alpha came out to be 0.88, which is a considerably high value. We focused on primarily 5 types of pro-environmental behavior: waste reduction, water conservation, energy conservation, consumer behavior, and improved air quality. And data for the study is based on responses by 127 participants. To estimate the sample size for the study, we basically used Tabashnik and Fidel's formula, which is given on the screen. We made use of purposive sampling for the same. And after this was done, data were collected. We subjected it to Pearson product moment correlation to see how the variables were related or associated with each other, and then also subjected it to multiple regression using the MTER method to analyze the ability of the model to predict the outcome variable.
So looking at the demographic characteristics of the sample, most of them were in the female category, followed by 30% of them in the male category, in a very tiny section in the others. Majority of them in the terms of age group were in the 26 to 32 years of age group, and also in 18 to 25 years of age group, followed by a few people in 33 to 40 years of age group. The educational background for most of the respondents were that they were bachelors or they were postgraduates, followed by a few of them in with MPhil or PhD degree. And because of a maximum people falling in 18 to 25 and 26 to 32 years of age group, most of them were employed in organizations or were students, or just a very few of them were self-employed. So one of the most pertinent questions that we ask them is that if they have an awareness about the changes, if they have noticed the changes around them in the environment, and most of them replied with improved air quality as one of the most visible changes that they have felt, followed by also resurgence of birds and animals that they were able to, they have finally sobered up to see these changes like birds and animals in the wildlife. And also a lot of them reported about improved water quality and also the better weather conditions, may or may not be because of COVID-19, but they were better rainfall. There were more rainfalls and frequent rainfall and so on. So also a few of them also said that the low noise pollution levels were also a reason as why the birds were also chirping, and the birds they were able to see more birds. And also a very few of them said that they haven't reported any changes.
If you look at the correlations between the variables under study, it is evident that almost all of the variables in the study have significant positive correlations between them. Obviously, the magnitude is varying. Some are significant at 0.01 and some are significant at 0.05. But the three values which are more important here, first of all, in answer to the second piece of question that we had, the awareness of man-environment interaction and the attitude towards target behavior, there seems to be a high positive correlation of 0.52. And then if you look at the intention to perform for environmental behavior, that is also significantly associated with all the independent variables. But again, the two highest values are attitude towards behavior and perceived behavior control. If you look at the multiple regression and the table here, before we subjected the data to multiple regression, we also conducted a preliminary analysis to ensure that the underlying assumptions of multiple regression were fulfilled. Multiple regression basically has four underlying assumptions which need to be taken care of: normality, linearity, multicollinearity, and homoscedasticity. If you look at the model here, we need to look at the adjusted R-square value, and we can see clearly that the adjusted R-square value is 0.39. It basically means that this extended model accounts for 39% of the variance in the intention to perform for environmental behavior. Secondly, we also need to look at the last column in the table, which are the beta values for each independent variable. Here, only two values are significantly contributing to the intention to perform for environmental behavior. These two are attitude towards behavior and perceived behavior control, which basically means that this attitude and the PBC accounts for 41% and 33% of variance in the scores that participants have achieved on intention to perform for environmental behavior. Another thing which we really need to focus on is the scores for subjective norms. Those turned out to be A, not so much, B, not significant, which is a big cause for concern because it points towards the fact that in the community around us, we're not having enough conversations about the environment. We're not really talking about the environment as a thing which needs our attention, a thing which demands behavior change. So if you're looking at the implications of this study, we were trying to basically look at it from the perspective of her two disciplines. Neha was trying to look at it from the perspective of hers, and I was trying to bring psychology here. The idea here, which is really important, is the fact that people tend to think of themselves as consumers of environment and don't realize that they're also part of nature. And that's really problematic. And what we really need right now, especially against the backdrop of this pandemic, is to reevaluate our own environmental consciousness and values and to focus on developing an ecological self, which moves beyond our individualistic tendencies and looking at us as in a very anthropocentric way. That in itself is something that needs a huge change in the way we conduct ourselves. We need to engage once we develop this ecological and focus on. Then we need to focus on becoming more environmentally responsible because we're also a big part of the nature. Also, in terms of implications for future work and targeted interventions, we need to focus on three things: changing people's attitude so they have a more positive attitude towards environment, changing conversations in the community, addressing these issues, having people talk about them so that we can also convince people in our lives to become more environmentally conscious, and then also doing certain things which can enhance people's perceived behavioral control. This can be done directly either by making them aware of certain things they can do. This can also be done by actually making certain provisions available for them. And lastly, we have to understand that interdisciplinary action here is very important because when different people from different fields come together, they're able to bring different things to the table, and that can lead to a more cohesive understanding of problems that you're facing, or maybe, more smarter solutions which everyone can employ in some way or form. This finishes our presentation, and we will wind up now. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Neha and Nika. It was very informative talk. I would say it was a great combination of fields, resource management, psychology, and environment. So it is very self-informative and self-explanatory.
Thank you. Thank you so much for letting us to present together because we are from different disciplines and it was really helpful. Thank you so much for your cooperation.
Thank you so much for coming. I will be mailing you the questions since we are running behind the schedule.
Yeah, it's fine. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being part of our event. Thank you. So I would like to now invite our next young scientist. So she's Dr. Shalini Jaiswal, Associate Professor from MIT University, Noida. She will be talking about the recent application of environmental biotechnology. So, Dr. Shalini, over to you, ma'am.
Hello. Good afternoon to
Yes.
everyone. Actually, I'm just trying to share my slide. Hello.
Yes. Please.
Just a minute. I'm just trying to share my slide. I think there is some problem. Can my present my research without slides?
Yeah. Yes.
Because I'm unable to present my slide. So my topic is environmental biotechnology and their latest application. Fine. Myself, Dr. Shalini Jaiswal, as already you gave my introduction. So my research basically is based on the latest application of biotechnology related to the environment. So first, I think everyone know that what is environmental biotechnology, and this is a very common. Environmental biotechnology is basically the application of microorganism to improve the quality of environment. And nowadays this is basically used in a very regular manner to achieve the sustainable development. Fine. So now I'm moving to the main part of my research, that is the application of biotechnology in environment. Fine. So there are a number of applications that is included in the application of biotechnology or uses of the biotechnology. So these are one by one. One is the bioremediation, and next one is wastewater treatment, and next one is bioleaching, bioplastics, biological fertilizer, biofuel, etc. So I'm going to explain one by one what is basically how we are going to use environmental biotechnology and how we are going to improve the quality of environment by using biotechnology. So first one is bioremediation. So bioremediation is basically a method by which we are going to improve the quality and by which we are going to remove a different kind of pollutant and toxic chemicals from the environment and from air and soil. And bioremediation can be there are a number of the method that can be used to apply bioremediation. So these are categorized in a three category. First one is a phytoremediation, and second one is a microbial remediation, and third one is mycoremediation. So I'm going to I will take just 1 to 2 minutes to complete this different application of environmental biotechnology. So I'm going to explain what is the phytoremediation. Phytoremediation is basically the natural ability of plants, how they are going to remove different kind of the pollutants from the air, from the soil, how they are going to absorb different kind of the chemicals that is present in the environment. And phytoremediation is again categorized in a different way by which we can achieve phytoremediation. So I'm not going to explain all these methods by which we can we are going to done a phytoremediation. Now next I am moving to the what is a microbial remediation. So microremediation is nothing, it is basically uses of microorganism to decompose the different organic materials into the non-harmful substance that can be used in a future prospects, they can be used in a further way. And third one is the microremediation. So microremediation is basically in which we are going to use a fungus, that is basically a fungi based technology that is going to remove a different kind of the pollutants and different kind of the pesticides from the environment. So when we are going to use a fungi to remove different kind of the pollutants and pesticide, hydrocarbons and heavy metal, then this is called microremediation. So these are the different way by which we can do bioremediation. And next one is the sewage treatment. This is another application of environmental biotechnology. Sewage treatment. This is also called a wastewater treatment. So everyone know that what is the sewage treatment and wastewater treatment. But in this method, we are going to use a different kind of a microorganism to convert a harmful substance into the non-harmful substance to reduce the pollution, to convert the different kind of the pollutant present in a sewage. And this has a number of benefits. You can say that they are going to reduce biodegradable organic content. At the same time, they are also going to reduce toxic and heavy metals. At the same time, they are also going to inactivate different kind of the pathogens and microorganisms that is already present in sewage or wastewater. And next application is bioleaching and biomining. So bioleaching and biomining is nothing. It's basically the extraction of different kind of metals from their ores by the help of microorganisms. So if you are going to use a microorganism to metallurgical process, then this is called bioleaching and biomining. And this is useful because we know that when we are going to extraction of the metal, so that which is cause a number of you can say that different kind of the pollution. So they are going to reduce a different kind of the pollution when we are doing a bioleaching and biomining. And next one is bioplastic. This is a very you can say that a useful way by which we are going to also achieve a sustainable development, and we are also going to hello. Hello.
Yes, Shanti. Yes,
Actually, there is some disturbance. So bioplastic is basically a commonly used bioplastic we are using on a regular basis. We are using bioplastics in basically a disposable item. So we can easily dispose that bioplastics and easily going to dispose in the environment, and at the same time they are not going to harm the environment. So they are very useful for environment. And next one is a biology. Hello.
I would like you to conclude, please, since we are running into time.
Yeah. I'm going to conclude just in 1 minute. So in my summary, so you can say that the environmental biotechnology have a number of the applications as already discussed. And when we are going to use a different engineering technology to improve the quality of environment, this is called as environmental biotechnology. And they have a number of applications like bioremediation, biological fertilizers, biomining, bioleaching, wastewater treatment, bioplastics, and so on. Thank you very much, organizing team and Dr. Vishal for cooperating. If anyone has question, they can ask me. Thank you very much.
Shalini, thank you so much for being so supportive. We'll be sending you the queries and the questions through email.
Okay. Sorry, I'm unable to share my slides. If anyone needs, then I'll share my slides to everyone. Thank you very much.
You can send the PDF first. We will upload on our Facebook page. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
So,
बोलो क्या इतनी देर नाम खा रहा मेरी इज्जत पहले साइड में बोलना पड़ा.
Thank you so much, Kumar. Now I would like to introduce the last speaker of the day, Mr. Abu Bakr Aziz from Department of Chemistry, Nile University, Nigeria, along with Mr. M. Idris, Department of Physics, York State University, Nigeria. We'll be talking about public consumption precautions and spread of COVID in northern Nigeria. So, please, Mr. Abu Bakr, if you are, am I audible to you? Mr. Abu Bakr Aziz, I can see you in the list. Am I audible to you? Can you just see is he online or not and can unmute?
Hello.
Yeah,
Hello, everyone. Yes, I can hear you.
yeah. Please go ahead with your talk.
Okay, can I share my screen?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Oh, sorry, I am trying. Share. What's up now? Can you see my screen, please?
No.
Hello.
You're audible, sir. You can start with your presentation.
Okay. Okay, I am trying to actually share my screen, but I'm having some little difficulties.
It's
Anyway,
okay. If you're not able to share your screen, you can present your views on your presentation. You can start speaking on your presentation.
okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Even though it's morning here, thank you so much for giving me such a golden opportunity to present my paper. My name is Abubakar Aji, a postgraduate student from Nile University. And actually, the article is a joint paper between I and Mr. Miftahu Gambo Idris, who is a lecturer from the Department of Physics, Yobe State University, Damaturu. The title of my article or our article is Public Conception, Precautions, and the Spread of COVID-19 in Northern Nigeria. So I am going to use the following contents: introduction, goal of the study, materials and method, results, analysis, discussion, and conclusion. Introduction. It is indeed mind-boggling for a virus as tiny as 120 nanometers to turn the whole world upside down. The novel coronavirus, COVID-19, has shut down almost all the schools, industries, ministries, markets, shops, and economic activities across the globe. Religious gatherings, wedding ceremonies, and any kind of congregations were also banned as well. Therefore, any research related to the coronavirus is highly welcome. And at the course of writing this paper, I came to realize that the world has actually quite a long not seen such kind of research quick, if I may use that word, because whenever you are about to search for the literature on coronavirus, everything is almost latest. So that's one of the nice things about coronavirus. Sorry. Goal of the study. The goal of this study was to assess the public perception, precautions, and the spread of coronavirus COVID-19 in northern Nigeria. The researchers instrumented an anonymous online survey using a Google form to collect data from respondents in northern Nigeria. Materials and method. The anonymous online survey was just for 3 days, from 2nd to 4th June 2020. The total of 140 respondents from northern states of Nigeria responded to the survey. 0.7% prefer not to say their gender. 15.0 were females. 84.3% were male. The research question 1 says, is COVID-19 real? Is COVID-19 real? This research question is aimed at seeking for people's opinion on the existence of COVID-19. 63% said yes, they agree that coronavirus do exist, while 0.7% did not agree with the existence of coronavirus. 36.2% are doubting about the existence of coronavirus. The research question 2 says, if yes, Meaning from research question 1, if yes, when last did you believe in the existence of coronavirus? And many, over 50% said they agree from the first incident, while the rest did not agree in the first incident, but later they came to realize that yes, coronavirus do exist. Research question 3 is about the origin of COVID-19. Actually, when the survey was designed, the link was sent across for the people to respond. The limited views about the origin of COVID-19 were embedded for the respondents to respond. The COVID-19 origin were many, but at the course of this study, we only prefer to use just 3 views. 1 is from Wuhan sea market, 2 escape from lab in Wuhan, or biochemical weapon. Question number 5, okay, research question number next is, do you take precautions such as face mask, no handshaking, and social distancing? So 10% of the respondents say no, they don't take any precautions, while 12.1% were not consistent, they are somehow taking the precaution. But 77.9% said yes, they are trying their best in taking all the necessary precautions. Analysis. From the analysis of the data, it was found that 63.0% believe that COVID-19 is real, while 36.2% are still doubting about it. 0.7% did not believe in the existence of the virus at all. 64.3% believe in the reality of COVID-19 from the first incident. 20.0% could not remember when last they admitted the matter, while the 15.7% did not accept the issue in the first place. As for the precautions, 77.9% were taking precautions, 12.1% were not consistent in the precaution. That is, sometimes they do take precautions, and sometimes they just feel like not to take any kind of preventive measure. 10% were not taking the preventive measures at all. And without further explanation, definitely lack of taking precaution could be one of the reasons for the spread of coronavirus. Why? Because even the respondents said 55.7%, that's 55.7% of the respondents said the incident of the spread of coronavirus is spreading in their states. Out of the 140 respondents, 25.7% have not known the victims of COVID-19. Sorry, have known. 25.7% have known the victim or victims of coronavirus. That's they maybe in person know someone who is a victim of coronavirus, or they have interacted directly or indirectly. But the most frightening aspect of the coronavirus is 72.1% have not known any victim at all. Imagine 72.1% have not known, seen any of the victim of coronavirus. From now discussions. From the analysis of the data, it was found that even though many believe in the existence of coronavirus...
Sorry to interrupt you, sir. We have a short of time. Can you conclude your presentation?
Okay. Many people have doubt about it, and 0.7% did not believe in the existence of coronavirus. This is one of the reasons actually for the spread of the virus in northern Nigeria, and it's in comparison with the study conducted by Dryhorse et al. 2020 on the risk perception of COVID-19 around the world. As for the precautions, the research found that people are not consistent or not taking the precautions at all. 55.7% said the incident is actually increasing. This is in contrast with the lack of following the WHO guidelines, such as hand washing, use of hand sanitizer, and social distancing. In conclusion, the goal of this study was actually to assess the public conception, precaution, and the spread of COVID-19 in northern Nigeria. The data collected were analyzed using simple percentage tables and charts. The analysis shows that the disbelief in the existence of COVID-19 by the public in the first place, lack of taking preventive measures, and the symptomless behavior of the disease were some of the reasons for the spread of the virus in northern Nigeria. Thank you for listening. Hello, I'm done.
Very informative talk, and gives us with respect of what is happening in Africa, especially in Nigeria, during this COVID situation. This period of defines our theme of the event, positive is a family. So thank you so much for being with us. Over to you, Monica. Monica? So I would like
Your voice is not clear. Hello.
over to you. Over to you.
Okay. Now I want to thank on the behalf of Bhagini Nivedita College, its organizing team. Thanks a lot to our guest of honor, Professor V.K. Jain, plenary speaker, Professor Terence Pereira, Professor R.P. Tandon, Dr. Pankaj Kumar Johan, and yes, special thanks to Mr. Pradeep Shashidharan for chairing the session. Invited young scientists Dr. Paras Gaur, Dr. Bhumika Kapoor, Dr. Shalini Jaiswal, and Abhipakar Aji, and especially the participants for making this session a successful one. I'm in this session with the two beautiful quotes by Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. The first one says, "You have to dream before your dreams can come true." Another one, "Dream is not what you sleep, is the thing which doesn't let you sleep." So we will meet in next session at 3 o'clock.
So we'll be starting our next session at 3 o'clock. Professor Dayashankar Kulshrestha, Professor Poonam Slotia from Department of Physics and Astrophysics,